Is it better to rent or to buy a house? Let's debunk some of the myths. Myth number 1.
A home costs money. It's not free when you own a home.
Yes, it costs money. It costs money to rent as well. But you also want to add things to the house to make it your own, to add equity to the house, to increase the value of the house. Myth number 2.
Understand that it's not rent versus mortgage. Sometimes it's mortgage versus freedom, because people are stupid when they say it's mortgage versus rent.
You don't own the house. You can get evicted at any single point, or they can sell the house, forcing you to move. So just as you get comfortable, your kids get to design their room how they want. Now you have to up and move potentially to a different neighborhood or a different part of the city. That's freedom to you. Myth number 3.
And if you look at the paperwork, you don't actually fucking own the house. You're going to pay 4 times more for it by the time you've paid off the mortgage. And technically, the bank owns the house because the bank's using your house to go borrow even more money out in the ecosystem. So you don't own it. You're a fucking battery for the mortgage company. You're paying that. You're working for the bank. Just be honest about it. At least understand it. Don't go into it thinking you're owning it.
Nope, I actually do own the house, in fact. The bank has an interest on the house, but nope, I own it. And by the way, the average with interest payments is 2x what you pay for the house at the end of 30 years, not 4. Myth number 4.
You may own it later. Assuming you pay the mortgage off in 30 years, most people die in the house they finally own at 65.
No, most people don't die in their house at 65. In fact, any baby boomer right now is still living in their principal residence that they've owned for 40 years. And then they own that house tax-free by themselves. They don't have a rent payment anymore. And the only payment they have now is property taxes, insurance, and utilities. Myth number 5.
I bought a house. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing a job I hate to pay the mortgage, to work for the bank, to own the house so that my kids have a better life, which is beautiful. Sounds beautiful. It's a fucking lie as well.
People aren't buying a house for their kids. They're buying a house for themselves. And by the time it's paid off, that value in the US and Canada is going to be between $400,000 and $700,000 of tax-free money that they can use for whatever they want when they sell the house. Myth number 6.
So what happens when you die is inheritance tax in most countries, especially England, 45%. So that house that your parents have managed to pay off, if they have managed to pay it off, and haven't got a mortgage to pay for your fucking university education that you didn't need, let's assume they actually kept it pure and managed to get out of debt. You've got the deposit for the very house your parents have just died in. You have to spend the next 30 years paying that fucking mortgage. It's a treadmill.
It's not a treadmill. You're running towards wealth. People live in that principal residence until they don't want to live there anymore, or they can't live there anymore. They sell the house tax-free. They live off that money for the next 25 years. You can't do that as a renter. And being a renter is fine. It's great, in fact, and it's really hard to buy a house right now. But just understand these myths.